Binary decisions lock us into making choices between two mutually exclusive options. You simply can't do both. You have to choose one or the other. You can't decide to take a trip to Paris while at the same time staying home. You'll have to make a choice. That said, choosing between an asset-based carrier and a freight brokerage is not one of these binary decisions. In fact, I'd recommend that you have more than one of each provider type in your network. But what are the main differences between these provider types, and what are you getting by selecting one over the other? Let's find out.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I've been with ATS and working in the freight brokerage industry for 10 years. Today we're going to talk about the difference between asset providers and freight brokers, some of the pros and cons between the two, and which one will fit best in your freight network. So in determining which service is the best for you, understanding the difference between the two is the first step. An asset provider is a trucking company that owns their own trucks and trailers and provides the service of moving your goods from A to B all on their own equipment. Where a freight broker is a third party that takes your shipment and contracts it out to a different asset provider to get your goods from A to B. So they don't own that tractor and trailer that actually end up hauling your goods. So in assessing an asset provider or a freight brokerage, we've come up with 7 different key indicators for you to consider when selecting who's the best fit for you. So the first thing that we like to consider is coverage. An asset carrier's coverage is limited to where their trucks and trailers are. Some asset providers choose to operate within certain regions. Some of them are nationwide carriers, but their coverage can ebb and flow with seasonality and where their other customers take their trucks and trailers. So there is an ebb and flow of their coverage. A freight broker has a little bit wider of an expanse because they're managing multiple carrier relationships that provide them access to more trucks and trailers, which allows them to be a little bit more flexible in terms of coverage geography-wise. But on the other side, one of the limitations of a freight broker could be how many people they have employed to help locate and find and build relationships with the right kind of trucking companies. So the size of a freight broker could impact their coverage. So one of the benefits to an asset provider is that they know exactly where that truck and trailer is and they own the plan of where they're going to go next. A freight broker has to make the plan. They know that you have a shipment, they've committed to finding you a solution, but then they have to go and source through their current relationships in order to find that coverage. So an example of this coverage would be if you have a shipment coming out of Salt Lake City and your asset provider is located in Kansas City, they may not have a truck and trailer ready tomorrow to pick up that Utah load. That's where a freight broker could add some value because they'll be able to use their expansive relationship of different asset providers to help you find the right truck. So the second factor that you should consider is flexibility of either that asset provider or the broker that you choose to work with. Asset providers can provide flexibility because they have drivers that report to them, right? They report to their brand, they support the decisions typically of the company, meaning that if you call your asset provider and there's a change in loading times or requirements or destination, that they're able to convey that to the driver and oftentimes be able to roll with the change a little bit easier. Where a broker works with a third party and they have the option then to decline on their behalf. If the broker is large enough in scale and robust enough, they can quickly recover from those instances, but it's not as quick as some of the asset providers where they can change plans and pivot a little bit differently. Brokerages can offer flexibility through their wide network of providers. If you're looking for a different type of trailer or some out-of-box solution or a quick kind of agile movement on a project that you're moving, a broker can typically do that because they have multiple resources to tap into. One of the areas that a broker may fail in flexibility is that they don't have that direct relationship with the truck driver and there is no commitment to their brand. Meaning that if you have a last-minute change and you're hoping that the driver will roll with it, it's easier for them to say no to a third party than if it was a direct customer of that asset. So our third factor is adaptability. Your supply chain is going to change. It may have peaks and valleys depending on seasonality. It might be because you're a growing company and will need more transportation later, or that you're project-based and it comes and it goes and it's sporadic, which means that your provider can shift, whether it's an asset-based company or it's a freight broker, that they can make those changes with your transportation network. Now, an asset carrier is going to have the overhead of a truck, a trailer, and drivers, And they have to keep that equipment moving. That is a priority of any asset carrier. So if your freight demand shrinks, they may need to reallocate that resource to a more steady shipper. If it grows, they may not be able to supply enough trucks with your rapid growth at the same pace. So the fourth thing that we want to talk about is quality. And quality is going to be the quality of the driver, the truck and trailer, and the service that you experience from either your asset provider or your freight brokerage. An asset provider, quality is going to be maintained through their driver hiring practices. What are the standards that they set? How do they train them? What is their home time and their pay like? And then also on their equipment. Do they have an age where they auto rebuy, or do they have their own shops where they make sure that maintenance is a top priority? Those are all things that you can ask that asset provider to make sure that they're going to provide you quality. On the freight brokerage side, they don't own the truck and trailer. So there is oftentimes a concern that the quality won't be there. And that's fair, because some freight brokers don't have a process in order to record all of the experiences that their customers are having with different trucking companies that they may maintain relationships with. Good freight brokers are going to have streamlined processes and systems to make sure that they're vetting each and every carrier prior to their load and keeping good record of the experiences that they're having. So early in your vetting process of a provider, asking about a broker's process to vet and validate the quality of a trucking company, their drivers and their equipment, is going to be very important to make sure that you receive the quality that you and your customers expect. Number 5 is responsibility. The responsibility of either an asset provider or a freight broker to successfully get your shipment and your promise to your customer delivered. For an asset provider, when something goes wrong, which it will, it's transportation, they have direct control over that truck and trailer. If they can't get there, they may not have brokerage authority to help find a backup. They might not have a truck close enough to get you a recovery option as soon as you need to. They will be responsible. Good asset providers will be responsible and make sure that you're whole in whatever way they can, but sometimes the reaction time isn't as quick. That driver got held up on their last delivery and can no longer pick up yours. It's going to be a lot harder for them to be able to kind of come in and come up with a quick action item to fix your problem. Overall, that asset provider's name is on that truck and that trailer, and they are going to do everything in their power to protect their reputation, to protect your customer and your reputation, to make sure your freight gets from A to B. One of the misconceptions of a freight brokerage is that when things go wrong, they're not responsible and they don't fix it and they don't step up to the plate to make things right. A good freight broker, if you're vetting them properly, is going to help you through all of those messes that is transportation. Things will go wrong. To prevent that, a good freight broker is going to make sure they have really good carrier vetting process. And then even if and when something goes wrong beyond their vetting process, they're going to think outside of the box. They're going to present you 1 to 2 to 3 different solutions to make sure that at the end of the day, you fulfill the promise to your customer. So another thing you should consider is the service you need, like drop trailers. For instance, if you need drop trailer service, an asset provider typically is going to have a higher trailer to truck ratio, which is something you should ask them if you're considering about requesting this service. They're going to have direct access to the trailers, they're going to understand their pool and the movement of those trailers, so that service is something that they are very good at handling. A freight broker, on the other hand, is going to have to rely again on partner carriers to drop different trailers. Although it's a newer practice, it's something they can do, but typically not as good as an asset provider. If you're looking for it for a short-term period, it's definitely something to explore with a current or prospective freight broker. But if you're looking for a long-term partner to drop a large amount of trailers, you might want to err on the side of sticking with that asset provider for those types of needs. All right, last but not least, number 7 is pricing. Now, an asset provider and a freight brokerage both can offer you pricing either on a spot market or a contract basis, but the way they formulate them and what they consider when they look at their pricing is very different. An asset provider is going to be based on the overhead of that truck and that trailer and their driver, and potentially some of the backhaul or lane needs that they have in their current shipper network. So they have more of a fixed cost that's going to be reliant on what their overhead is and their freight needs are. A freight broker is always going to have to take into consideration market ebbs and flows of trailers within the specific lanes that you may need service. Theirs is going to be very market driven and can be volatile with the marketplace, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. But something to consider is that whether you're getting pricing from a freight broker or an asset provider, they both will be impacted by fuel costs, by natural disasters, by weather events. And so their rates both can fluctuate regardless of which provider you choose. An asset provider is going to have to try to retain their drivers, so keeping strong and healthy rates that are competitive in the marketplace is important for an asset provider so they can keep a driver happy working for their organization. That's what a good asset provider would do. A freight broker is going to give you a price based on a market to get you the service that you expect. So when an asset-based provider and a freight broker give you a rate, their priorities are different, but those priorities and the reason for the rate can be impacted by similar things. One priority is to cover the cost of the overhead to keep the driver happy, right, and compensated based on market value. A freight broker is to find you a truck and a trailer at the right time, in the right place, for the right price that's going to move it, where they're also going to make a bit of a profit. So to wrap it all up, we went through 7 different factors that you should consider when deciding on if an asset-based provider or freight broker is right for you. If you want my opinion, at the end of the day, you're probably going to need both in your network to be robust, agile, and flexible enough to make sure that all of your freight needs are covered.
Okay. Well, there are certainly a lot of differences between each of these providers, aren't there? That said, no matter which type of provider you choose to start with initially, eventually, an asset-based carrier will have to get involved. Without the use of their truck, trailer, and the drivers they employ, nothing would get moved. Sure, a freight brokerage can line everything up in a way that gives you the peace of mind that you're looking for, but they still need an expansive network of asset trucking companies in their corner to do so. To help you make the right decision when selecting asset companies for your own network, I invite you to download our Freight Carrier Vetting Guide located on our Learning Hub. This 30-question guide was designed to help you avoid adding bad asset companies to your network so that you can become the supplier that always delivers for your customers. Finally, thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, make sure to subscribe to the Trucking Industry channel, give it a like, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a great piece of educational content. Thank you.